Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to be discussing some potential themes of the next Battlefield game. And joining me is JackFrags. Not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he has a YouTube channel that focuses exclusively on Hello Kitty Island Adventure. And then we have Matimi0, who has a YouTube channel about makeup tips. So thank you guys for joining us. And why don't we get into it? What do you guys think is going to be the next Battlefield game?
I'm sorry. When did you become funny, Level? God.
I was born funny, man.
Well, I'm hoping that they get their Hello Kitty license because as my channel focuses on that, it's really something I'd like to see in the Battlefield space.
Yeah, I think it could really go over well with the sort of cartoon theme. You could have all these different sort of Hello Kitty add-ons, different color bows, right?
Flawless. Flawless.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, why don't I start it off and say that I've heard rumors. I've heard two different rumors from my secret sources that one has said that it could be a World War II theme game. I heard this last year, and that sounded pretty cool. Fairly credible source, but you know what? EA could have changed their minds. And then I've heard more recently that it could potentially be a World War I themed game. And I have to say I was a little bit concerned about the idea of a World War I themed Battlefield game. It's certainly a new direction for the Battlefield franchise, but how much do you guys think they could get out of trench warfare? I mean, do you think that's enough for like 4 DLCs?
I just can't see World War One happening, really. It wasn't that interesting. Unless they went for like a steampunk vibe, like an alternate reality World War One, like sort of like the Order 1886 style with lightning and Tesla guns and Tesla tanks.
That would be cool.
Like
Red
it
Alert style.
would, yeah. But I think
But do you see them actually doing that though? I don't know if I'd. Maybe.
well, what
They've
can
never
they
done
get out of
anything
World
crazy
War
like that.
One apart from just
that's
running
the
out of
problem.
trenches?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did the
And
they
then you
did
don't
the
really have the-
secret weapons expansion for the original Battlefield 1942, which had jetpacks and like flying wings and sort of like Captain America style World War One sort of future tech, which would be cool. But would they make the whole game like that? Because I could see like literally World War One being like an expansion DLC for like a World War II theme game or something. I just don't see how you could get that much out of it.
You run into the weapon problem too. Like all gamers have come to expect certain weapon attachments and customization. And when you play games like Verdun and they're really authentic, they've got a fair amount of guns, but there isn't really a whole lot to choose from because there really wasn't a whole lot to choose from back then.
Yeah, it's like, do
And
I
so
want
how
this
much depth are you
bolt-action
really gonna
rifle
get?
or that bolt-action rifle?
Yeah,
I
or
can
should I
choose
use this
between a
pistol or this
3-round
pistol?
magazine or a hefty 6-round magazine. Get kind of crazy there.
Exactly. So not only would the maps kind of dreary, like you said, trench warfare, that's what it was all about. I mean, you could mix it up. You could have like invading cities, but the weapons really wouldn't be all there too. Or at least what we've kind of grown to expect from Battlefield.
Yeah. And Battlefield's always been about planes, tanks, boats, giant sprawling maps that show off all this cool stuff. Now, technically, World War I did have tanks. It had some pretty funky ghetto tanks, and then they had biplanes and stuff like that. So I guess you could throw that into it, but would that be that authentic if the whole game was about like these really old school tanks and like biplane dogfights? Because both tanks and biplanes didn't have that big an impact on the war. I think it really was mostly like trench warfare, mustard gas, and artillery rounds, which sounds kind of like a nightmare to me, but you know.
Well,
Yeah,
it was,
I
it
just
was.
I like you said, like it's the expectation of Battlefield fans nowadays is just like this massive, large scale, huge variety warfare, and I just don't think there's enough source material there for like a authentic World War One game, let's say. But as I said, I think if they add other stuff and get a bit creative with it, like steampunk or dinosaurs,
I like perfect. Oh
There's
my god,
possibility
World War
there.
I themed dinosaurs? That would blow
Dinos.
everybody's mind. Like, let's be honest, nobody would see that coming.
That
fucking
would come out of left field.
Triceratops with 2
Yeah.
Gatling guns on it. I'm in for that. Let's go.
Yeah, throw some like 2-inch steel plating on there too. Kind of do sort of a hybrid armor design. That'd be sweet.
Do you ride the dinos or are you the dino?
You ride them.
Oh, okay. I kind of
Let's
want to
not
be
get crazy, Matt.
You can't be a dinosaur, Matt.
let's not get too crazy now.
Yeah. What do you guys think about rebooting the World War II franchise? I mean, 1942, it's been a while. They did the PlayStation version, PS3 World War II game, but they haven't done a PC or a universal launch of WW2 in a while.
I mean, that's what I'm rooting for. That's what I want to see. I mean, we've had all these modern military shooters for the last forever, and now everything seems to go futuristic with Destiny, Call of Duty. Basically, every shooter come out has gone futuristic. And so to go back, I think would be really refreshing.
Jack?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be cool to see a modern Frostbite World War II game. If you think of something like Stalingrad, like the kind of stuff they could do with the destruction there, and the amount of lore and story and history that's come out of World War II now. There's so many different items and weapons that you can modify or change, lots of different vehicles, experimental vehicles. I think it'd be pretty cool to go back to World War II, but I don't think they'll do it.
Even though that the next COD game they're talking about, not Black Ops 3 obviously, but they're talking about going back to World War II next year with COD, you don't think Battlefield would follow suit?
I don't know. I mean, I tried to think of it from a developer standpoint as well. Like, if someone's been working at DICE since maybe, I don't know, BF 1942 came out, they've already done a couple of World War II games. They've done Vietnam, and then they've done lots of military setting. Obviously, 2142 as well. From like a creative standpoint, I don't think they'd want to go back to that, but that's just my opinion. I think maybe they're bored of that time period now.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be the publisher. EA may not think it's worth the risk to go back. I mean, we might think it's going to be really refreshing, but I mean, there was a lot of World War games that's all it was on the market 10 years ago, and then people got bored of it, and that's why we went into modern military. And so maybe they don't want to run the risk of going back. Maybe they think that it's not good to go. That could be another reason why.
Yeah. It's hard to say what producers or developers are going to do because the market is currently saturated with a lot of these futuristic shooters now. So it's like, do you want to sort of jump on the bandwagon and sort of ride the hype train of kind of futuristic military shooters because everybody seems to be into it now? Or do you want to throw them a curveball and try and get on the World War II train before anybody else does? So it's a little tough. I personally would love to see a World War II game come out, like a full-scale Battlefield WW2 with Sherman tanks, Tiger tanks, have that tank class warfare come back again, which was kind of cool. You run into the Tiger on the battlefield and your Sherman, like if you can beat a Tiger tank with your Sherman, you're like the man. I kind of miss having like different scales of tanks and stuff like that. That was cool. Do you guys think that there's any chance of Bad Company 3 being the next big Battlefield launch? There's a huge fan base for the Bad Company 2 title, but it's kind of been put on the back burner, and it just seems like it might not be big enough for the next big Battlefield game.
Yeah, I agree with you in a lot of respects. Like, draw with Bad Company was that it had like a really good single player campaign, and the characters and the story were kind of interesting. And obviously for the multiplayer, it focused a lot on just being able to destroy everything, and it wasn't as big as classic Battlefield games. It was a bit more arcadey. And I don't know if EA or DICE would want to focus their efforts on a single player Battlefield Bad Company game again, simply because I think the expectation nowadays is just more, to focus on the multiplayer. I mean, if you think about how badly people reacted to the BF3 and BF4 single player campaigns, I mean, from a technical standpoint and in terms of their cinematics, they're amazing, but the actual gameplay isn't anything to shout about. It's just very, it's like you're just shooting targets. So I don't think they would focus on it at the moment, maybe as a side project, but not the next big Battlefield title.
It seems weird that EA hasn't been able to get together their single player team together, because I mean the COD franchise has like mastered single player forever, and Battlefield like started off with that single player and then they started adding it on, And the Bad Company did an all right job, but the main titles, BF3 and BF4, have just had garbage single player. It's weird to me that they can't come up with something better than they have. You know, they know how to throw in the production quality, but they don't know how to make the gameplay fun.
Yeah, well, it's funny too, and this is also probably another reason why we may not get Bad Company. I'm holding on to hope, but DICE even came out and said a really long time ago that they don't know why people like Bad Company. Like, they just didn't know what the magic was, and that's kind of concerning, considering they're the ones that created it. Like, of course, they had an idea, of course, because they probably loved what they did. They just didn't know why so many people were drawn to it, and that kind of worries me that they wouldn't try the next one, because they're just not really sure what what made it so magical, and even if it would work. Because you go back and play Bad Company 2 now, it doesn't live up to what a lot of people remember it. It's really clunky. Like, it's really clunky.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Yeah, there's always, whenever I go to back to Bad Company 2, it's like those crazy clustered rush matches where you're just like, you just get choke pointed like crazy, and then you're like, okay, they blew up all the jungle, now I have nowhere to like actually take cover, and it's going to be a stalemate for the next 200 tickets. I mean, there's definitely some good rounds of Bad Company 2 that I had back in the day, but it also certainly had its issues, and it's definitely an issue of everybody remembering their games with their nostalgia glasses on, you know, and like, oh, this was the best game ever. Well, I think Bad Company 2 is certainly a decent game, and learning from previous mistakes. I mean, it was the first game to invent the rush game mode, or in the Battlefield franchise anyway, and so they kind of were working out the kinks with that, but I think they've really perfected it, at least in Battlefield 3, and kind of mucked it up in BF4, but you know, they're still working on it. I wouldn't mind seeing a Bad Company 3 title, but I doubt that it's going to be the next game.
What I'm hoping for is that they'll go like big Battlefield game, like Battlefield 5 next year, and then on the off year, we would get like a Bad Company. That would be cool.
Yeah.
So instead of like Hardline 2, I mean, maybe some people want Hardline 2, but I'd rather it be like, hey, Bad Company 3 will be the off year instead of something else. I don't know.
Do you think, cool. Well, I mean, so it's literally just gone from Battlefield 3, huge effing title, to Battlefield 4. Like, there hasn't been a break between the two games. So do you think now is like, maybe it's more likely that they're going to have the break game, the intermission between massive Battlefield titles?
Maybe. I think there's potential that like a studio like DICE LA might actually be working on their own Battlefield title, like perhaps a spin-off, because that was the studio that did Warfighter, obviously, and they changed to DICE LA, and there's still actually quite a lot of people working there, from what I know, and on the surface, it seems like all they're doing is updating CTE, and I'm not saying that's, I don't know how much workload that is. It's probably a lot, to make the community map and to make the Dragon Valley remake. But I do kind of feel like they've got more people there than they actually let on, and they might be working on a sort of side project Battlefield. But that's just a complete guess, and probably completely wrong. Somewhere
on that fourth floor, maybe?
Yeah, on the fourth floor.
That fourth floor.
Yeah, and it also seems like, and I don't want to badmouth EA, but if they're putting all this time into CTE and making Battlefield 4 better, I find it hard to believe that they're just doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. I gotta believe that it's because they want to make the engine as good as possible, and they're working in collaboration with the new Battlefield project so that the engine can be as good as it possibly can be when the next huge Battlefield game launches.
Yeah,
well, you kind of hope that would be their incentive, because it's good for us and it's good for them. I can't see any negative coming from that mindset. Hey, we want our game to be better, but we also want our next game to be better, so let's make everything better. That's basically what they're doing right now. So I have no complaints whatsoever with that.
Yeah. Did you guys see that some fake image tweet recently that made it look like somebody took a picture with their cell phone of a game screen that said Battlefield 2143, but it's been confirmed fake? But would that be something you would want to see as the next major Battlefield game?
I think it would be cool to revisit that series. And again, I think if you look at the games that DICE have made recently, they're all like modern military setting. except of course for like the old World War II games they did, whatever. And maybe going back to that universe would give them a bit of inspiration and a bit more creative freedom to come up with interesting new game mechanics and concepts. Because if you think of like BF4, it's got so many guns in it. It's got all the guns that you could ever want in a first-person shooter, all the customization, all the vehicles, all the camo. It's like when you think about it, if they just did another modern military Battlefield for BF5, it's not really giving them much inspiration or creative freedom, is it?
How do you make it new, right? They added Levolution for BF4, and it's like, what do you do for this one? It's like, oh, there's 2 AC-130s. Crazy. You can shoot the other AC-130 down with your AC-130.
Yeah, and I feel like if they go back to that futuristic setting, it's just going to open up so many more interesting gameplay opportunities. And I actually think the dev studio would probably welcome that sort of thing.
Yeah, in effect, it kind of functions as, I wouldn't say a reboot, but it kind of clears the palette again. You have to rethink of it because it's been so long since we played, say, a 2142 game that they really do have to build it from the ground up. They're not going to like copy and paste assets over. It's like going to be an entirely new game. So it is like thinking of new stuff. All new guns, all new gadgets, all new gear. Like, how's the game going to play out? What kind of game modes? It really is thinking from the ground up, and that would also be a great break between the modern military shooters.
I completely agree, and I'd love it, but I'd also be really surprised if they created a futuristic shooter that would compete alongside Star Wars. I mean, they're basically competing with themselves at that point.
Yeah.
And for us, we'll buy it. We love first-person shooters, and we like Battlefield. But for a customer who's from the outside, they're looking in. They're like, well, I got Star Wars, which is Star Wars, and then I got this futuristic Battlefield game. I'm probably gonna just buy Star Wars or one or the other, and not pick up both.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they made both.
That's
It's going to create a bit of confusion.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we have to imagine, obviously, it's EA, biggest game publisher in the world. They got somebody on there that's like, all right, here's our game lineup for 2016. They're not going to be like future shooter, Star Wars. Like they're gonna mix it up, try and hit all the different audiences and stuff like that. So that is a really good point. Probably not going to be seeing 2143 just for that reason alone. I have to agree.
Mm-hmm. I think the most likely scenario really for BF5 or whatever the next game is like it'll be in the future, but it'll be near future, sort of like what they were going for with Final Stand. You've got like the beginnings
or the last Call of Duty game.
Hover tanks and the beginnings of mechs and stuff like that. So if they keep it grounded in reality, so it's still going to have bullets, but start slowly working in all this futuristic tech and build up maybe to a future 2143 title.
Yeah. What would be cool? I've always wanted to see, like, have you guys seen Elysium, where they have that like old school AK but with like a futuristic optic on it, and it's got like these tracking bullets that like comes out of it and explode?
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see a game that sort of did what a lot of the modern COD games are doing, where they take old tech like an old FAL and put all this cool modern crap on it. Like, it would be kind of neat to see that.
Can you imagine the rage tracking bullets? Oh my god.
Oh god. I'm not saying add that to the game, Jesus. That would be awful.
Yeah, I don't want them to go as far as like
that auto tracks. That'd be great.
Yeah, I don't want them to go as far as like Advanced Warfare or something like that, because I think, especially with Black Ops 3 now as well, being very similar to that game and sort of similar to Titanfall in a lot of ways, it just feels like that's like the new meta almost in like FPS. And I don't want Battlefield to go that exact same route. I don't want to be able to fucking jump 50 feet in the air in a Battlefield game.
Yeah,
I don't want to be able to do power
Guns,
slides.
no smart guns like the smart pistol and Titanfall and a bunch of other games are doing it now. And you're just like, okay, that's like, it's different, but it sucks. Like, it just takes the skill out of the shooter, which, from the ground up is supposed to be a skill-based game.
Well, as soon as you start to go that route, then you move into the arcadey category, and really
Battlefield's never really been an arcadey game unless you count Battlefield Heroes, and I guess you could say Bad Company has gone that way a little, but not very much.
Even Heroes, completely. It's like its own different category. It's just like a free to play. But But even Bad Company was grounded in realism. I mean, sure, it was arcadey, but
Yeah.
even Battlefield 4 is arcadey. It's not completely realistic. It's not completely authentic. So,
Yeah.
but as soon as you start jumping across buildings, as you said, doing all these crazy stuff like in COD or Titanfall, that's when they need to make the decision. Is this really the direction that we want to go? And I'd be surprised if they did.
Yeah. So out of the titles we've listed here, World War I, World War II, obviously a reboot of the same modern thing with maybe a slightly more futuristic twist on it. And then we got Bad Company 3, 2143. I doubt they'll make a standalone Vietnam title. Are there any other games that you guys think the next Battlefield title might be?
I can't really think of any. I mean, unless they're doing something completely left field, like crazy.
Yeah, like
Like
Hello
it-
Kitty.
Well, like that, or maybe World War II, dinosaurs, lasers, plus steampunk. Something
Steampunk,
completely crazy.
Mirror's Edge Battlefield. Everybody's just going to be parkouring off of trees and stuff.
They're cool. Yeah, I agree with Jack. We pretty much covered every time period.
Okay.
Period.
So in terms
it's
of
gonna be-
what you guys want to see the most for the next Battlefield, what is it?
I want World War II. I just think that would freshen things up. I know that some people will disagree and they'd rather go futuristic or just modern, but I love me my World War, so give me that.
Cool. Jack?
I would either like to see near future or something completely kooky, like I was just talking about. Something crazy.
Cool. I think I'm putting World War II and 2143 on the same plane. I would be equally happy to see either of those games come out next. So that pretty much wraps it up for our discussion. Let us know in the comments if you have any other ideas for what a future Battlefield game could be. And thank you, Jack and Matimi0, for coming along for the discussion. If you seriously aren't familiar with their channels, you should be, but check the video description for links. As always, guys, I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, JackFrags, and Matimi0 signing out.